So yes, today's theme is about transformation, transfiguration. And there's many different kinds of transformations. There's personal, there's community, societal transformations. There's inner ones, knowledge and awareness and perspective. There's outer ones, material conditions, the world in which you live, the way in which you live. There can be slow transformations, there can be sudden transformations, ones that are good, ones that are bad. And sometimes they're intentional, sometimes they're unintentional, sometimes unexpected, unpredictable. The results, you just can't expect what might happen. So today's story from our scripture reading involves transformation as well. Jesus and his three best friends go up the mountain. They're out there hanging out. They're having a good time, spending some quality time together, growing together in spirit. Mountains are a great place to do that sort of thing. You feel like you're closer to the spirit world, and there's many cultures actually that see mountaintops, high places, as being closer to the spirit world. The boundaries up there are thin. You can see the sky so clearly, and sometimes that can really get inside your soul. Suddenly, they've got this funny feeling, the disciples and Jesus. They feel a presence, they feel an energy, there's a flash of light and color, all sorts of special effects. Jesus is positively glowing, full of the Spirit, and he's talking with Moses and Elijah, two great prophets from the Old Testament, people that would have been big in the stories of their age. Much like how Moses saw a burning bush and led his people out of slavery and was the lawgiver for the people of Israel. And much how Elijah was like the prototypical Jesus, the Jesus before Jesus, the wise seer and miracle worker, the prognosticator. Now Jesus is among them. He's one of them. There's magic in the air, and Jesus has become this great spirit through this process of transfiguration. Now, Peter's a real materialist guy. He's like whipping out his phone. He's trying to snap some selfies with it, like trying to just capture the moment, build some monuments. Tries to capture lightning in a bottle, but you can't do that. It's an ineffable experience. It defies any attempts to F it. So God shows up and he's like, "This is my child, with whom I love and adore. Trust in his wisdom." And they're like, whoa, okay. They're gobsmacked. They're absolutely gobsmacked because this is not the kind of thing that happens every day, obviously. God is coming to them and telling them that their friend Jesus, he's pretty special. He's pretty awesome. Jesus, though, he's keeping a cool head because he's pretty comfortable with this whole experience. He's like, just chill. It's all good. It's all good. He talks them down because they're like groveling on the ground. They're pretty afraid because when God shows up, you might be a little bit freaked out. But he talks them down, and they're okay. And then they're alone. The story's pretty short in the Bible, but they likely continued their magical adventure after that, continued to adventure through the mountains, learning and exploring and having revelations. And Jesus was just sharing wisdom that was just blowing their minds. And they all came back transformed by this experience. Not just Jesus, but also the disciples. They came back as different people. And that guided them on their further ministry, their further adventures through the world. They were never the same. It was the beginning of a new era, full of confidence, freed of doubt and anxiety, carrying the truth with them of a new and better world to come. Truly amazing. Now, I've had some similar experiences, and this is the story of my first experience with that, a life-altering transformation. You can really measure my life between the pre-that moment era and the post-that moment era. And I've told this story before at Trinity before, and it kind of bears repeating because in youth, I was an angry, angry man. Angry and isolated, an anti-theist, not just an atheist, but an anti-theist. I would be just outraged at Christians and debate them and just be really nasty and nihilistic. But I was miserable, full of depression, full of anxiety and loneliness and frustration. But everything changed one night about 15, 16 years ago. A close friend and I had a magical experience. We shared a pizza together with some mushrooms on it, and then went adventuring. We went to the park across the street from Trinity, Kiwanis Park, and it was just the perfect night, just beautiful, just like mid-August, perfect temperature, a little bit of humidity, a little bit of mist in the grass and dew, one of those shorts and t-shirt kind of nights, and just a little bit of crickets going on. It was just so beautiful. I laid in the soft grass, and my friend was next to me, and I was underneath this ancient willow tree and looking up at the stars. It's perfectly clear, and the moon is there, and I'm looking up at the moon. And suddenly, like the disciples, like Jesus, I had a magical experience. The noise that had been in my head my whole life just fell silent in that moment. The anxiety that's dogged me just disappeared. I became filled with the sense of loving peace and joy in my heart. The moon felt close. It felt like it was right there, that I could grasp it, that it was part of me, that I was the moon and the moon was me, and I was this willow tree and my friend was me. All things were then one. It was a profound sense of being no longer alone. I was connected, not separate, not independent, but an integral part of everything, intimately interconnected with the fabric of the universe, both utterly insignificant and also the most vitally important center of all being. This was a realization for me, a revelation. I had this realization that although I'd never experienced it before and I had doubted the existence of such things, I was experiencing God. I am God. This is God. You are God. This lectern is God. Everything is God. Everything was now suffused with meaning. The nihilism of my youth was gone. Everything had direction and purpose and value. Heavens and earth danced with life, a shining fabric of electric energy and shimmering color. And I cannot adequately describe to you if you've not experienced it, but probably it was like what Jesus and his disciples were experiencing as well. Now, mind you, you can't live on the mountaintop, and like Peter, you can't smuggle that experience, that magic, back down into the real world. But I was permanently transformed, much like the disciples, by that experience. This sense of awe and love and knowledge of the unity of the universe and the Spirit of God in and with me, they've lasted. I've since found direction. I ended up at this church. This sense of purpose, of course, it's still unclear and evolving because all things do change, but it provided some clues, some indications that there is some value to this spirituality thing. I started living in a different way, living for other people rather than just myself. And yes, I ended up at Trinity, and I ended up, I guess, here now at Mount Zion. And this experience started this process of personal transformation that continues to this day. But how and why? I still describe as a secular person, as an atheist. The God that I saw wasn't like, God wasn't a guy. He wasn't somebody that I could talk to that talked back to me. It's more like a property of the world. And of course, everybody has their own conception of God, and I'm not saying mine is right or yours is wrong, because everyone's got their own, and whatever works for you, as long as it brings you to kindness, it works. Philosophically speaking, what I believe God to be is something like what Baruch Spinoza, the philosopher, sees God as a property of the universe rather than an entity that's out there somewhere. Now, rationally speaking, while I was having this experience, I knew that it was happening in my mind, but it was still happening. This was still definitely a real thing that was occurring. There is really a God. And I can still remember the sensation, and the world still looks different as it did on that night. Now, I was so fascinated by this phenomenon, this spiritual experience, that I started studying the phenomenon, and I found that it's actually everywhere. The same experience of peace and love and unity and awe that I was having is common across cultures, across time, across different peoples, different races, young and old. The stories exist in every spiritual religious tradition. And there's many ways that this can happen as well. I've felt similarly since then at a really great concert when I was connected with everybody and like really in the music. When I was on stage during one of our murder mysteries at Trinity, like I just felt in the room, very, very present. Young children actually live in this state. They're always there. And indeed, these spiritual experiences can feel like returning to childhood, which is really comfortable. It's really wonderful to be able to experience this. The practices of rituals, meditation, chanting, prayer, rhythmic dancing, breathing, chanting, that sort of thing, that can also engender this experience as well, just by creating this physiological response that reminds your mind of the way that you're able to do this. And of course, various indigenous cultures use plant medicines in order to create this during their ceremonies, sweat lodges and things like that. It's built right into the human brain. We all have access to this spiritual experience. It's a natural function, and some might think of it this way as being a brain phenomenon, that it like weakens its meaning. But no, it means that humans innately, naturally are spiritual beings. It's built right into our DNA. We're magical by nature. Now, my experience, it's not unique. Everyone has access to some degree. You too can have spiritual experiences. And in fact, you probably have had spiritual experiences through prayer or any other means. You just need to invoke it. You just need to call it forth. Invite the Spirit to come live within you, invoke the magic, climb up the mountain with Jesus and his disciples, and have that experience. Now, why is this important? Why do I actually value this at all? Well, it's to do this transformation process, to discover what's hidden, to see the world differently, to change the narrative of your life, to have a more positive impact in the world. The stories that we hear and tell create our reality for us. It's not the facts of the world, the facts of life that create reality. It's the narratives, the stories we tell about the way that we experience the world. The dominant narrative of our age creates the people like I used to be. Anxious and frustrated and angry and alone and hopeless and judgmental. And through the news and through the pundits you see on TV and pop culture, we're constantly told that we're not good enough, but we're independent and self-sufficient, we should be at least, that we're in competition with everyone else all the time, that we're valued by our net worth and by what we own, and we're responsible for our own misfortune. If something bad happens, well, you've made some mistake. You're not as good as everybody else. It's a toxic narrative. It creates this delusion, this insane delusion of an experience of being alone, of being isolated. It creates a hostile world in which to live that you are the center of, and it's up to you. But it's not. This experience of magic shows how absurdly wrong this is. It reveals the truth that you're interdependent. You're all within each other, inherently a worthy being. We're stronger together through cooperation, through hard work together. And it's a reminder that you're part of something. You're not alone. Things actually matter. You can get better. Things can improve. You're not stuck with just the way things are. If we wanted to, things can be different. And if more people recognize this, then things would be different. But we're mostly denied this experience. Few have even ever had it. The hyper-rational age in which we live rejects the value of spirituality. Church attendance, like this place is not as full as it used to be. And it's talked down in the media that church going is not a rational thing to do. But it's not rational. It's not supposed to be rational. If this was about rationality, we'd be in a philosophy lecture, and this is far from that. There's all sorts of ways that we can re-adopt spirituality, because it is changing. This paradigm is changing. There's a growing body of research that suggests that the benefits of these spiritual experiences, whether created by religion, whether created by plant medicines or psychiatric treatments or narrative therapies, these things are healing people. They're improving people's lives. The links between the links between socioeconomic status, trauma, mental health is making it clearer that we need to do something about this world. It is a sad place, and people are suffering. But we can solve that. There's a recognition that needs to take place, an awareness of this path to transformation, to reject the fake world of independence and accept the interdependence of all people. Now, revelation is not always pleasant, of course. Some of these startling discoveries can be profoundly disturbing, recognizing the delusion and the experience of things as they are can be disorienting and uncomfortable at times. And some truths are hard to accept, which is why they're so deeply hidden. But you need to trust. You need not fear those truths. Let the spirit of humanity inhabit you and guide you, show you where you need to go, and transform you. Become as Jesus, transfigured on the mountaintop as a child of God. First you, and then spread to those around you, and then to your community, and then the rest of the world. So let's head up the mountain together. Let's go on a magical adventure to find truth. And it doesn't matter what paths you travel up this mountain, they're all going the same direction. We're all going up the same mountain. It's the travel that actually matters. And you're not traveling alone. You're joined by all others of goodwill, here at Mount Zion, at Trinity, everywhere else in the world, regardless of race, religion, creed, doctrine, culture, anything else. And we often say around Trinity and Mount Zion that we prefer kind atheists to mean Christians. And we really do mean it. We all have different paths to this spiritual truth. And we all screw up sometimes, of course. But our intentions to kindness are the only measure of what matters. The intent begets the transformation. And your commitment to truth becomes your guide, whatever comes your way. So remember, the Spirit is with you, as it was with Jesus and his friends, and all other beings on earth and beyond. Let Spirit guide you, show you truth, and bring us together as we work for the world to come.